Hello everyone and welcome back to version 11 of our crystal setup. So every time I update my crystals or something changes in the meta, I decide to update it and show you guys, as well as talk about things I've changed. And I've discussed my crystals with other people who are also at endgame, and so everyone just generally agrees that these are the most universally known, along with some other changes. So we're going to be talking about PvE, PvP, and Lifeskill Crystals. So whether you're a beginner or going into the end game, these are things you should probably look for as well. And this worked for me. So although the Lifeskill ones have not changed, some other ones have, and I'll talk about it. All right, so we'll start with PvE. This is the one I use for most things. Also, for the record, I don't think most people will need or have all the crystal slots, like the setup presets. I think realistically, 3 or 4 presets is good enough, and I think the game gives you like 2 or 3 by default. So, and then you can get another one through the loyalty shop. But regardless, I don't think people will need all of them, and this is just kind of if you have the extra and you want it. But otherwise, it's not really a big deal. We'll talk about alternatives anyway. So, the general PvE one, this is what you use when you just want maximum damage and there's nothing that you're doing that will CC you. So, like, let's say you're grinding at a certain spot where you need knockdown or whatever. You don't need that, so this is what you use. So what changed from last time? We obviously got the new Void Crystals, and these are from the new Elvia or Zekia spot. They're kind of annoying to grind, but luckily for me, I can grind them. But for the rest of us, here's how you do it. You go to, what are they called? The Void Crystals? Yeah, so basically, these you could probably get pretty easily. I don't know why these get sold so frequently compared to this one. You have to make both of them, and so you get the Gem of the Void from grinding. I would say you probably get about 10 an hour on average, assuming you're like an average grinder and not like 1%. So yeah, if you can grind a spot, you could probably get 1 crystal every 3 hours or something, and maybe 2, depending on how good you are. So anyway, new crystals. What is the difference between these and the other ones? Plus 2 monster AP, and I guess if you just want the best, that's what you get. Otherwise, alternatives are this thingy. So basically, the Precise Destruction turns into the Void Destruction. They're essentially the same thing, but with 2 extra AP. And then the Akrod, you see how, well, I guess these are different. Let me just show you an example. Yeah, so this crystal is +7, and the one you get is +9. So these are what you upgrade. Aside from that, straight out damage and everything that gives more damage. So the ones that you could flex out are the Corrupted Magic Crystals. What you could change it for are the Mysterious Darkness. That's about it. Like, do you do more back attack damage or do you want more crit? I generally think crit is a little bit more, but it comes with the penalty of -2 all damage reduction when you're grinding. So depending on where you're grinding, you might want to swap them out. So that's about it. Otherwise, these are roughly the same 300 mil each. And yeah, either one is generally fine. So Gihren's tier. Remember when these were 5 billion each? Yeah, not anymore. So there's no excuse for anyone to not have them. This is basically mandatory in any PvE spot. So yeah, that's the go-to all damage PvE. And so these 2 or these 3 next ones we're going to talk about are basically all of these, but we add the different red battlefield crystals that give the different kind of CC resistance that you need. So certain spots will, you know, have different ones that you want to. Admittedly, the one that's probably the most important, especially if you don't have all of the extra presets, is probably knockdown. And so what you're going to look for is 2 adamantines, which are 25% knockdown resistance. And if I have this all equipped plus my Vel's Heart going, it is 100% PvE knockdown resist. So in PvP, it caps at like 70% or something. where like no matter how many crystals you have, you can still get CC'd. But in PvE, it can go to 100. So this one is 100. How do you get it? You have 50% from knockdown crystals, do adamantines, and then you get another 10% here from the stalwart fortitude. If you need another one of these, you can always just like take out anything and then add another 10%. But the way you get 100, so right now we have 60. And then your Bel's Heart is another 2. And I believe you have things from tent buff. Does this one give it? No, I don't think so. But either way, you can get 100%. And if you're full buffed and everything, it should work. So with that said, what is next? Knockback, once again, same thing. The only thing you change here is Fighting Spirit for knockdown. Anti-stun is Giant Crystals. And then that's about it. So for the most part, once again, PvE damage, this is the one you want to go for. And then knockdown is probably second highest priority. All right, let's talk about PvP Crystals. This one is all damage. As we all know, if you just want to be a glass cannon class like Dark Knight, this is generally what you'll probably be using. So I chose this one. What do we go for? We go for basically as much AP and as much extra human damage as you can. Obviously PvP, that's how it is. And then, so the ways you would get this are red Alucas crystals for +7, and then you have 2 of them. 2 Vipers, which are +10 times 2. Red Spirit, which is +3 times 2, and plus the 10 extra AP on it. And then 2 Karmes for +8. Pretty self-explanatory. You want extra HP. PvP is survivability to an extent. And I personally have chose Mysterious Darkness over Corrupteds, simply because your goal is to get back attacks on people in general. And if you're playing against other players, generally people know how to rotate their super armors and forward guards. So just try to get more back attacks. It's just practice. And then aside from that, when you have the 1 extra flex spot, what you could change is you could realistically probably put like, you know, anything else you wanted on here as well. So we have the red circle crystal. This one is kind of like a mixed bag of a lot of things, but it's better and gives more stats than any other crystal. That's why we have one of these. And, you know, accuracy for PvP is always important. So when in doubt, this is just the all damage one. Your glass cannon. If someone's running full evasion, just hope for the best. So that's about it. This is my PvP defense one. Basically, the idea of this one is you just want to be tankier. I have used this on a Dark Knight, which, you know, is a kind of a weird test because Dark Knights are glass cannons, but I've also tested this on Valkyrie. I've also tested it on Shy, which, you know, gave weird results, but, you know, Valkyrie, Shy, Megu, Wusa. Basically, this one is more defensives, a little bit of damage. What we have is double Dark Red Fang Crystals for armors for the extra all DR. And then you can have as many Ancient Crystals of Abundance as you want, so as long as you can buy them. There's no limit to how many you can have, but there's 2 over here. So you want to have at least 2 and then fill the rest of them with any extra flex spots. Other than that, 4 Hooms. Some PvP damage is always nice, but more defensives and, you know, accuracy. It's kind of more defensive, but you still are able to do a little bit of damage. I also swapped out 2 damage reduction crystals. Obviously, if you can get the Jin ones, that's even better, but those are 30 billion each, so that's a little bit different. All right, so PvP resistances. So this one is kind of like a personal choice one, depending on your class and what you feel like you need resistance of the most. So what I have 1 adamantine and 1 fighting spirit, which is a mix of knockback, knockdown, and then floating resistance, and then, you know, everything else. But aside from that, this is more defensive, but still with a little bit of offense and more resist. Kind of like this one, but with resist more accurately. And then we put 6 reds for the damage. Okay, so this is the accuracy build. This is PvP as well. So you still want your crystals with more human damage and everything, and then adamantines for knockdown. I think of all the CCs that are out there, knockdown is the most, like, the scariest one, because just in general, if you get knocked down, you can go from 100 to 0 in health. So that's personally what I choose. You can choose whatever. And then aside from that, pretty much standard damage with resistances. And then accuracy, what do we have? We have 2 Jin Vipers over here, and then 2 Elkars, and then we have the Bon and a wand, just because that's all I had at the moment. Otherwise, if you had double Jins, that's obviously the best outcome. But that is also, the Jin one is like 45 billion. I have other upgrades to worry about. But anyway, this is pretty good. We have a plus 202 accuracy. Could be more depending on what you have. Like if you have double Jins, generally good. So yeah, double accuracy crystals over here for plus 200. Also, depending on your class, you might have accuracy extra, like based on your passive, so that always helps as well. But yeah, that's about it. So highlights of here are Vipers, Elkars, and the crystals. All right, this is my evasion setup. I don't really have too much experience with it, but the few evasion classes that I've played and tested it with, it seems to be fine. The more evasion crystals, I would go probably up to three max, 1 to 3 depending on your AP and damage. It actually does feel different. What we have here is double Jin Harpias for 40 evasion, and then we have some accuracy and more defensives. And then, you know, it's the idea is more evasion, but to be defensive. It's like you don't really do much damage with this one, but your evasion is higher. So Sage, I've tested this one on. Tested this on Wusa a little bit. It wasn't really that great. Obviously, it does not work well on Dark Knight. But evasion classes, if you want to be defensive, this is solid. And this is the DR defensive one. So if you're not an evasion class and you're using damage reduction, this is what you're using. So I have double adamantines for the extra knockdown resist, and then all defensives here. So you can have as many of these as you want. So these are the budget versions of Dark Red Fang Crystals of Armor. And so these are 500 mil each. So they're more expensive than 30. But this one, you can use both in PvP and PvE. The only time I use this in PvE, though, is when I'm testing a new spot to see if I could survive it. So, like, the first time I went to Elvia or Zekia, that was, you know, a good choice. And then, remember when Dekia Ash Forest first came out? I had this set up, and I had, what was it? Yeah, I have almost 10,000 health, but I'm also not buffed right now. At least I don't think so. Yeah, so, like, no buffs on. This would give me over 10,000 health. I remember testing this a while ago. A couple years ago in Dekia Ash Forest. It went from 100% to 0. I have a video of that. You can watch it too. Fun stuff. This is why I have it. But otherwise, you don't really grind with it. It's more of like a, hey, can you survive this spot? If so, then you go to the PvE Crystals. But aside from that, as much damage reduction as you can get, as well as like resistances and then monster damage reduction, basically anything defensive as you want. If you don't need knockdown resistances, you can swap these out for more armor and all more DR. And then I put 3 damage reduction crystals here. This is more for the PvP test. Otherwise, if you want more damage, you just add more Jins, Jin APs, and then I don't know. You could put 6 of these damage reductions, but you basically do no damage. I think no matter what you're doing, whether it's PvP or PvE, you don't really want to have more than 3. I think 3 is like the point where you are still doing okay without sacrificing too much offensive. Unless you're doing that whole, what is that thing that Shies used to do? Literally all defensive and they do no damage and they're just like out there to be annoying. Yeah, if you want to do that, then put 6 crystals in there. All right, so this one is for speed, and this one basically adds as much attack cast speed as you can with a mix of, you know, still offensive as well. So this is what I tested when I was back in the day doing score pushes for the Morning Light bosses and trying to get, like, you know, top score and everything. You would, if you know how to do things perfectly, attack cast speed is higher priority. Admittedly, I don't use this as much anymore, but in spots where you want to like push the absolute maximum you can of like trash loot and everything with, you know, attack cast speed, there's that. Admittedly, I think this one is a little bit out of date, but I still have it. This is the one I do use, though, more on the regular for Morning Light bosses. So let me give you an example. I haven't done my weeklies yet, but if you're trying to do like Calamity 810, like this is what I actually have for this week, and that's what I have. So this is what I use for that. The important things, once again, I have back attack because that's what you're doing most of the time. And if you're doing bosses, especially the higher Calamity ones like 8 to 10, you can kind of predict what attacks are going to happen next and just adjust yourself around it. Whereas if you're fighting against other players, it's unpredictable. So yeah, all offensive with a little bit more on back attack damage. That's about it. And also, I didn't really want the -2 all damage reduction. Not that it really matters on like Calamity 8 to 10, because if you get hit by certain mechanics, it doesn't even matter. You just die. So either way, just to be a little bit safer and because things are predictable, I chose that one. Otherwise, you could take this one out and just put anything else you want here as well. All right, so that has been both PvE crystals. These first 4 are PvE. This one all the way down to, I would say these next 4 are PvP, and these could be used for either one, but I think they're more tailored towards PvP, but you can technically, I guess, use it in both of them. And then these 2 are bosses specific. And then let's talk about the crystals for life skills. So mastery, I would probably recommend getting mastery crystals over XP crystals, just because mastery gives more silver, whereas life XP gives permanent mastery as you level up. So if you're a beginner, what would I do? I would get more life XP just to get yours up to Guru if you're doing the Guru push, especially for alchemy. That one's kind of tedious. Yeah, up until a certain point, you just want to get your things to Guru, then I would use that, and then swap over to Mastery. Mastery makes more silver, depending on what you're doing. So there's that. I don't know which ones are on the market. I assume, let me actually look at this. These are called Vitals and Life. I see. So you can get them. You just have to put an order on maximum. It'll probably fill, but you just can't buy like 20 of them at once. Good to know. And then the reason why I have energy crystals over here is, one, you could put them on your other characters. Like, you see how my cap is 618 right now, right? If you put them on another character that you don't play as much, it will go to plus 20 of your cap. So it's a small bonus, and will it really matter? Probably not, but it's good to have. And especially if you're doing a lot of gathering early on, those are very helpful. And I think those are good budget alternatives as well. So these are what, like 240k, and these are max price. So you could do that. Not that the silver is that much different. So this one is the combat XP. I use this on seasonal characters, like when I'm going through a new season, and also when I'm AFK on a training dummy. So if you're just trying to level up new things, this is what you want. You get all these crystals through seasonal. I think you get 2 per season, so you just get them over time. Otherwise, you get 1 Gearin's tier. And let me show you. If you don't have a lot of them, what do? There are XP... What is it called? There's a crystal. I don't combat XP. Is that what it's called? Let me. Oh god. Is it under functional? Oh yeah, magic crystal of infinity experience. These are the budget options. They give 10% combat XP if you don't have them. Very cheap. You can just buy them and then replace them as you get these through seasonal. I believe you get 2 of them, and they come from these boxes that you just get 1 every season, and then it gives you 2 of them. So yeah, no, you won't have to worry about them breaking unless you're dying in seasons, and for some reason you shouldn't be. But either way, basically once you get these, you're done with it. Max out as much as you can, get the extra combat XP, get the 1 gear in, and especially for all of you new players, what I would do is for your Lightstone combo setup, you would use 4 of these, and then it gives you like 100% plus another 300% from the set effect. So that's 400%, and then you put them on like whatever monster XP, like extra AP against monsters. These are the beginner ones, very easy to get. And so yeah, if you're just trying to level up, those are what I would do, and that's about it. So with that said, TLDR, this is my PvE go-to for about 99% of things. If I'm doing any PvP, this is my go-to for 99% of things. Or if I'm doing 1v1s, I might swap it out for this one, or like anything in particular, 1 or 4, depending on the situation. But I would say this is one that will probably be used more regularly, along with all damage, or people who sacrifice a little bit of damage to actually be able to have some accuracy. So these are, one of these 2 are probably my go-tos. And then these are the defensives for testing. If you're doing any bossing, this is the one you want. You could swap this out for corrupteds if you wanted to. And then the life skill ones really just depends on what your goal is. And then this is combat XP. So with that said, that has been version 11 of our crystal setup. What has really changed since last time? Yeah, the void crystals are the new best in slot PvE ones. So if you can't grind there, and admittedly, even for me, it is kind of a sweaty spot. So it's kind of like, kind of sketch. What you would do is put an order on the void crystals. These are probably easier to get, simply because there's probably a lot of the other precise destruction crystals floating around. But just, yeah, put an order on 10 of these at a time and hope for the best. So those are the new crystals. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have a different preset, just let me know what you guys use. I'm curious to know. But I think for the most part, these are the go-to for most endgame players. And I talked about some budget alternatives as well. And that's about it. So with that said, see you guys later. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.